And away we go. Episode 1196 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. It is Veterans Day 2025. A salute and a thank you to all of our veterans. I know that we have plenty of veterans who listen to this podcast. Today is your day. Monday was not Joe Whitt Jr.'s day. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, during his day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, off the wonderful 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium on Sunday, announced that he now is the Commanders' defensive coordinator. Joe Whitt has not been fired, but he has been demoted. His tenure as Commanders' defensive coordinator ended up lasting less than 2 seasons as the team's defense, yes, hammered by injury, also has become an embarrassment. Did you see what ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky put up on X on Monday morning? Orlovsky on Monday morning in a post on X just eviscerated the Commanders' defense. Quote, "It's shocking to see how bad the Washington defense tape is. A lack of discipline, poor spacing, physicality, talent has been an issue all season, but this tape was odd to see from a DQ unit. Not much between the whistle fight." End quote. And just a few hours later, we got the announcement from Dan Quinn from DQ that he had demoted Joe Whitt and had taken over as Commanders defensive coordinator. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Let us hope that Dan Quinn taking over as Commanders defensive coordinator goes a bit better than the last time that a Commanders head coach took over as the team's defensive coordinator during a season. Ron Rivera, in November 2023. That did not go well, though by that point, I and many of you wanted the Commanders to lose as I was conducting Operation Loseout. So from that standpoint, Ron, as defensive coordinator for the Commanders, actually did go quite well. But are we at the point at which we need to conduct Operation Loseout 2.0? By the way, the Commanders' first game with head coach Ron Rivera as defensive coordinator was against the Miami Dolphins, a 45-15 loss to the Dolphins at FedEx Field on December 3rd, 2023. The Commanders' first game with Dan Quinn as defensive coordinator is against the Dolphins in Spain this Sunday morning at 9:30. Next segment, in-depth reaction to and analysis of the big news from Monday afternoon. Dan Quinn demoting Joe Whitt and taking over as Commanders defensive coordinator. I'll also discuss 2 other items related to the defense. A, cornerback Tre Amos has suffered a fractured fibula, and yet another instance of this team this season being torpedoed by bad injury luck. B, the NFL has suspended interior defensive lineman Daron Payne for 1 game without pay for throwing a punch at Lions receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. The following segment, more on the Commanders, including Dan Quinn on the status of quarterback Jayden Daniels, how advanced stats make quarterback Marcus Mariota's performance in the loss to the Lions look even better, and further examination of Mariota saying, quote, "I don't think we are who we think we are," end quote. And also on the show, I'll talk about our rebuilding and tanking Washington Wizards. They on Monday night lost their 9th consecutive game in quite the game, a 137-135 overtime loss at the Detroit Pistons on Monday night. The Wizards blew a 13-point fourth quarter lead. Heck, they blew a 5-point lead with 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter. A lot to get to with this game. Before we get to some feedback, the Washington Nationals, they on Monday evening announced the hiring of Michael Johns as the team's bench coach for new manager Blake Butera. Michael Johns is 50, spent the last 2 seasons as the first base coach for the Tampa Bay Rays. So some wisdom for Butera, who's just 33 years old, has never played or coached above the single A level of professional baseball. Also, the Commanders division, the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles now are running away with the division. A 10-7 win at the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football. Your NFC East standings for the NFL's 2025 regular season. The Philadelphia Eagles 7-2, the Dallas Cowboys 3-5-1, the Washington Commanders 3-7, and the New York Giants 2-8. The Eagles are the only team in the division with a winning record. This is by far the worst division race in the NFL right now, and with The Giants, they on Monday afternoon announced having fired head coach Brian Daboll. Assistant head coach / offensive coordinator Mike Kafka takes over as interim head coach. This was season number 4 for Joe Schoen as Giants general manager and Brian Daboll as Giants head coach. The Giants in the 2022 season went 9-7-1 in the regular season and won a playoff game, but the Giants in the 2023 regular season went just 6-11, and in the 2024 regular season went just 3-14, and now in this regular season are just 2-8. The Giants are headed toward having their 10th double-digit loss regular season over the last 12 regular seasons. That is something. The Giants, not Washington, not our team, have been the worst team in the NFC East for years now. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback on the Commanders, email from Stanley Evans. Right, Stanley? What's up, Al? Man, this really isn't fun. This time of year when our season is already over and it's not even Thanksgiving. Is there any shame in this front office? Any pride left on this roster? You expect fans to spend their hard-earned money on that? Rivera's teams had more structure than this circus. Zero discipline, zero accountability. Dan Quinn should just wave the white flag and spare us the post-game cliches. At least then we'd know he's being honest that this team has surrendered. We're not rebuilding, we're rotting. And somehow it still hurts to care. Losing happens in the NFL, but this is a collapse. Last year set expectations too high, and AP completely misread the strength of this roster. The trenches, the depth, the discipline, all of it fell apart. This isn't just bad football. It is mismanagement from the top down. Have a great week, dude. Thank you for the email, Stanley. You do the same. Regarding the Commanders roster, which clearly is not as good as we thought / hoped. So you likely remember Dan Quinn during his introductory press conference as Commanders head coach in February 2024 talking about how he wasn't using the word rebuild, that what the team was undergoing was a recalibration. Quote, "This is a recalibrate," end quote. Here was that.
This is a recalibrate, finding our north again. And that starts, with our identity of our club. So, no, you will not hear me say the word rebuild at all.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Recalibrate, not rebuild. The Commanders were so good last season that we thought that the rebuild / recalibration was perhaps one and done. Well, what are we to think now? Yes, the Commanders this season have gotten brutalized by injury, but also, yes, the roster clearly is not good enough. And so with all of this as a backdrop, we, during Dan Quinn's post-practice press conference this past Friday, had this exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic and Quinn.
Sort of a broader question. When you first got here, I think you said this would be more of a recalibration. Do you feel the same now at this point in the season? Do you still feel like the team is sort of where you thought it would be?
Fair question. We're obviously in a tough slump. I mean, you can't deny this. But I don't feel differently. How we're performing does not make me happy. We're beating ourselves. We're not hitting the marks that we need to, but that doesn't change my outlook or my belief. I have a sense that it's about to go again. And I see that because of practice. I see that because of locker room, but it does have to take place on the field too, Nikki. That's a big deal. But I also love there's some people that are developing, but it still comes down to the performance on the field. So I have not changed my mindset on that in the midst of a tough stretch for us. I have not changed my mindset on that.
It's a fascinating topic. Where exactly are the Commanders in the team building spectrum? I would say this: if you have a superstar quarterback on a rookie contract, you don't rebuild. A superstar quarterback on a rookie contract is the most coveted piece of an NFL team's rebuild. You have that piece, and you don't want to be spending his precious seasons on that rookie contract rebuilding. At the same time, the team clearly needs a lot of work at positions other than quarterback. And so the approach to me needs to be this fine line of making win-now moves while also getting younger and better. And that is such a difficult thing to do. It's what general manager Adam Peters tried to do this past offseason. A problem with the approach is that it requires having a high hit rate on the draft picks that you do have and haven't traded away in win-now moves. And the results right now of Peters' 2 NFL draft classes as Commanders GM are mixed. The results are not overwhelmingly negative, but they are not overwhelmingly positive. We need to see more and better from the players who he has drafted as the team's GM. I think that Peters this coming offseason needs to make a concerted effort to add to his inventory of draft picks and needs to not trade away draft picks. The trades for cornerback Marshawn Lattimore and left tackle Laramie Tunsil in particular really depleted the Commanders' inventory of draft picks. Email from Jim D. Writes, Jim, if nothing else, I'm happy with the offense for still playing. The offense at least looks inoffensive/mediocre. The defense, on the other hand, looks like it doesn't belong out there with NFL talent. As Jonathan Vilma said on the broadcast, the defense is actively hurting this team and giving us no chance. I'm still expecting JWJ to be let go at the end of the season, but what we are seeing is so unacceptable that I wouldn't be mad at an in-season X. This is quickly reminding me of the 2013 season, a massive disappointment following an extraordinary season. 2016 and 2021 were unsuccessful, but at least those seasons were similar in style and record to their previous seasons. This is just a bona fide disaster. Only difference is DQ doesn't deserve to be fired, and people need to stop with that. He just took us to the NFC Championship game, people. Let's just go into the offseason and figure this out. Hashtag Operation Lose Out. Thank you for that, Jim. Oh, I am so close to launching Operation Lose Out 2.0. I am on the doorstep of launching Operation Lose Out 2.0. The Redskins' 2013 season, to me, is the ugliest season in team history because not only was the team horrendous, but we had all of the behind-the-scenes politics that came to light regarding owner Dan Snyder and executive vice president/head coach Mike Shanahan and quarterback Robert Griffin III. Also, the 2013 Skins were one of the worst NFL teams in history in terms of special teams. Remember that? Shout out to the team's special teams coordinator for that season, Keith Burns. The 2025 Commanders, at least, are very good on special teams. So shout out to special teams coordinator Larry Izzo. This season is not that 2013 season, although the drop-off in record may be worse. The Skins went 10-6 in the 2012 regular season and then 3-13 in the 2013 regular season, a 7-game drop-off. The Commanders went 12-5 in the 2024 regular season. How much worse will the record be for this regular season? Could be worse than a 7-game drop-off. Hey, if you are a Commanders fan, check out bgobsession.com, an outstanding site for Commanders conversation. The Sons of Washington forum on bgobsession.com is tremendous. BG Obsession, or BGO, has been going strong since 2009. No politics, just friendly and passionate discussion about the Commanders and more. Great contests, game day chats, and camaraderie. Both old school and new school fans are welcome. Visit and join BGO at bgobsession.com. bgobsession.com, home to your burgundy and gold obsession. Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. The greatest defensive coordinator in Washington Commanders franchise history is Richie Pettibone. He was the Redskins defensive coordinator for the 1981 through 1992 seasons. What is amazing but also true is that just one person who has run Washington's defense since Pettibone has truly done well. That person is Greg Williams. Greg Williams, the G-R-E, double G, the Greg, in Greg Williams spelled with 3 G's. Never forget that. Greg Williams was the Skins' assistant head coach in charge of defense for the 2004 through 2007 seasons. He technically was not the Skins' defensive coordinator. Greg Blosh was, but those were Greg Williams' defenses. The Skins had great defenses in 3 of Williams' 4 seasons with the team. Here were the Skins' regular season rankings in total defense per DVOA with Greg Williams as assistant head coach in charge of defense. 2004, number 4. 2005, number 4. 2006, number 32, as in dead last in the NFL. The 2006 Skins defense was awful. But 2007, number 7. Not since Greg Williams has Washington had anything close to consistently good defense. Your Washington defensive coordinators since Greg Williams ran the Skins defense: Greg Blosh, Jim Haslett, Joe Barry, Greg Minuski, Jack Del Rio, and Joe Whitt Jr. And we now can say that Joe Whitt's tenure as Washington defensive coordinator was a failure, as his time as Washington defensive coordinator is done. The Commanders on Monday night flew to Spain for their game against the Miami Dolphins this Sunday morning at 9:30. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, he on Monday afternoon did his day after the game press conference off the 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium on Sunday. This was a short day after the game presser, lasted for about 9 minutes, and this was Quinn during the opening statement of the presser.
You know, when something's not working, we shift from the question of why isn't it working to what do we need to do to get right. And right now that'll call for some change. And I'll take over the role as the defensive coordinator and all that entails. Known Joe as my right-hand man for years, and he took the news like the pro he is. As a defensive staff, including Joe, we're all consumed by getting it right. And that's exactly what we intend to do. And as far as like heading out on the trip and getting rolling, as we head out tonight, I've been a fan of extended road trips, whether it's training camp or, in season to the opposite coast. It can serve a lot of purposes. And this trip, that is literally the definition of that. And so for all of us, the players, the coaches, we're really consumed by getting it right and getting better. And a week together, we need that, every bit of it. Finally, I'll end on some tough news on the injury front. Tre Amos fractured his fibula, and that will knock him out for a while, so he'll miss some significant time. So all that said, I'll get started with you guys, and we'll get rolling.
All right, so 2 major announcements right there. Number 1, Dan Quinn has taken over defensive coordinator duties from defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr., who is remaining on the staff. I'm not sure if his title is changing, but Quinn has demoted Whitt and has taken over as Commanders' defensive coordinator. Number 2, cornerback Tre Amos in the loss to the Lions suffered a fractured fibula. So yet another major injury for the Commanders in this season of horrendous injury luck. Notable Commanders defensive players on the reserve/injured list already include cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, safety Will Harris, and edge defenders Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise Jr., and Javonte Jean-Baptiste. And now, presumably, Tre Amos is joining those guys on the reserve/injured list. But yeah, major change with the defense has happened. Joe Whitt demoted Dan Quinn, taking over as defensive coordinator. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Dan Quinn.
What led to this decision to do this? How long you been thinking about that? Why now?
I think now, just after watching and reviewing the tape, we felt off. You've heard me say that word, John. And so I thought this is the time to add into that and lean in. Joe and I have got a great vibe together, John. We've worked together, through our time in Dallas, and we'll lean back into that space where, he'll help me along the way and all that leads up into the game and calling it into that space. So having Joe, and I been in that vibe together, we'll lean into that again, and we'll do that now.
Well, the reason that this is happening now is because the Commanders' defense is horrendous, and that's not just about the injuries. The Commanders in the NFL's 2025 regular season are just 3-7 with a point differential of minus 57. Third worst record in the NFC, second worst point differential in the NFC. The team has lost 5 consecutive games, with each of the last 4 losses being by at least 21 points. There are all kinds of stats that speak to how bad the defense is, but here's the one that most sticks out to me. The Commanders for this regular season are dead last in the NFL in fewest yards allowed per pass attempt, 8.45. The next worst team is the Chicago Bears at 7.81. The Commanders are nearly 2/3 of a yard worse than the next worst team in terms of fewest yards allowed per pass attempt. Opposing quarterbacks are feasting on the Commanders this season. And the irony here is that Joe Whitt's background is as a defensive backs coach. Whitt was with the Green Bay Packers for the 2008 through 2018 seasons. He, for the 2008 season, was a Packers defensive quality control coach. For the 2009 through 2017 seasons, was the Packers secondary cornerbacks coach. And for the 2018 season, was the Packers defensive passing game coordinator. And Whitt was the Dallas Cowboys secondary coach and defensive passing game coordinator from January 2021 to February 2024. That span coincided precisely with Dan Quinn's time as Cowboys defensive coordinator. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Davala of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Dan, what does this mean exactly for Joe's role going forward if you're handling play calling and everything that, defensive coordinator, what that role is?
Yep, so Joe will be involved all week, obviously, with the rest of the staff and, planning and getting ready for the game. And then on game day, he'll be in the press box and, with the vision on the coverage and the things that we need to do. And so, like I said, Nikki, I'm fortunate that we've been in that battle rhythm together during our time together in Dallas. And so we're going to try to slip into that spot, as quickly as we can.
So Joe Whitt headed back to being in the Commanders' coach's booth during games. His tenure with the Commanders as a coach on the sideline lasted for 1 game. How about that? The loss to the Lions marked his first and last game of having moved from being in the Commanders' coach's booth during games to being on the team's sideline during games. Dan Quinn and Joe Whitt are friends. Quinn demoting Whitt like this could not have been easy. But let's also note this. This demotion of Whitt makes Quinn look bad. When the Commanders hired Quinn as head coach in February 2024, it was almost immediately reported that he would be hiring Joe Whitt as defensive coordinator. There was a lot more intrigue and mystery with who Quinn would hire as offensive coordinator than there was with who Quinn would hire as defensive coordinator. Joe Whitt was a slam dunk easy hire for Dan Quinn, but it turned out to be the wrong hire. He lasted for less than 2 seasons as the team's defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn's track record as a defensive coordinator is outstanding. Quinn was the Seattle Seahawks defensive coordinator from January 2013 to February 2015. Here were the Seahawks regular season rankings in total defense per DVOA with Quinn as defensive coordinator. 2013, number 1. 2014, number 1. Quinn was the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator from January 2021 to February 2024. Here were the Cowboys regular season rankings in total defense per DVOA with Quinn as defensive coordinator. 2021, number 4. 2022, number 4. 2023, number 5. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Dan. As taking over for, defensive play calling here, what type of an impact do you think you can make?
Going into his tough decision, Scott, obviously, to go into that. I'm hopeful that we'll see, kind of the execution, the consistency that we're searching for. And that's a number 1 top of the pile to get that part right. We've been digging for it. We haven't had it. We haven't found it. And so that type of consistency and execution, Scott, that's what I'm after, and that's the only reason behind the move. So that's what I'm going to have to chase first.
Yeah, but what's tough is that it may not matter who the Commanders' defensive coordinator is, given all of the injuries and given the lack of talent on the team. What I would love to know about Dan Quinn demoting Joe Whitt and taking over as defensive coordinator is this. Is Quinn doing this because he genuinely feels that Whitt is doing a bad job, or because Quinn feels like he has to do something for the sake of doing something? You know, it's interesting. Dan Quinn, during his post-game press conference on Sunday night, indicated that no major change would come until the team gets to its bye week, which is the week after this game against the Dolphins in Spain. But then the very next day, we got this announcement of Quinn having demoted Whitt and having taken over as Commanders' defensive coordinator. Something changed. What changed? Was Quinn told to do this by general manager Adam Peters, or did Quinn do this entirely on his own accord? Oh, by the way, arguably the Commanders' best defensive player this season, interior defensive lineman Daron Payne, has been suspended. Yeah, we also had that on Monday. Maybe the worst aspect of the defense in the loss to the Lions was the defense becoming unhinged. This happened in the second quarter, highlighted by this. 2nd and 5 for the Lions. Running back Jahmyr Gibbs had a 13-yard I-formation handoff touchdown run with 9:41 left in the second quarter. Gibbs got pushed across the goal line by multiple teammates to conclude an embarrassing run against the Commanders' defense. This was the play on which Tre Amos suffered a fractured fibula. This was a play on which linebacker Frankie Louvu got hurt, but he did return to the game. And it was after this play that Daron Payne got ejected for throwing a punch at Lions receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. And the NFL on Monday morning announced that Payne has been suspended without pay for 1 game for, quote, an act of unsportsmanlike conduct during Sunday's game against the Detroit Lions, end quote. Now, interior defensive lineman Javon Kinlaw, during his post-game session with reporters on Sunday night, said that he saw Amon-Ra St. Brown hit Daron Payne first, but there's no clear video evidence of this, and I'm not sure that Kinlaw has a ton of credibility right now. 2nd and 10 for the Lions at the Commanders' 18 with 9:55 left in the second quarter. Kinlaw committed a 5-yard defensive offside penalty, and he, after the snap, inexplicably was talking trash to Lions quarterback Jared Goff, and Kinlaw, after the Lions got a 2-point conversion after that Jahmyr Gibbs 13-yard touchdown run, committed a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that was enforced between downs as he made contact with an official's hat. But the best part about Daron Payne getting ejected from this game and then being suspended for a game is that he was a captain for the game. Dan Quinn, during his post-practice press conference on Friday, announced Payne as one of 3 captains for the Commanders for this game. Well, Captain Payne got himself ejected and now suspended. Way to go, Captain. Aye, Captain. Great leadership shown by Captain Payne. We, on Monday afternoon, had this exchange between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Dan, what did you talk about with Daron in terms of his ejection yesterday, and regardless of why he did what he did?
Yeah, so I had a chance to visit with him today, and even regardless of the scenarios, man, like just the disciplines into that spot, David, that's what we talked about. Retaliation, not all of that aside, man, like protecting the team, top of the pile. And so they'll go through the process with the NFL this afternoon regarding an appeal, and then I'll have an update, for you just as soon as we can on that spot.
Yeah, and that appeal by Daron Payne went nowhere. We on Monday evening had this from NFL Senior Vice President of Football and International Communications, Michael Signora, in a post on X, quote, hearing officer Ramon Foster, jointly appointed by the NFL and the NFLPA, has upheld the 1-game suspension of Washington's Daron Payne, end quote. The 1-game suspension of the captain, Captain Payne, was upheld. Catering by Uptown. It provides catering to perfection. Whatever event you're planning, a wedding, a holiday party, whatever, visit cateringbyuptown.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you and see what Catering by Uptown can do for you. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business business. It's run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style and thus takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you go to cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. More now on the Washington Commanders off their 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium on Sunday, and off head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon. Quinn, during the presser, announced that receiver Terry McLaurin was traveling with the team to Spain for the game against the Miami Dolphins this Sunday morning at 9:30, but will not be playing in the game. McLaurin, for the loss to the Lions, was inactive for a second consecutive game due to a quadriceps that he re-injured in the Commanders' 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football on October 27th. McLaurin in that game returned from a 4-game absence caused by the quadriceps injury, so his injury-ravaged season continues. So the Commanders on Monday evening announced that the following players would not travel with the team to Spain on Monday night and had been ruled out for Sunday's game. Quarterback Jayden Daniels, receiver Treylon Burks, linebacker Ale Cajo, and cornerback Tre Amos. The Burks injury is the one that maybe stands out the most from that list. It turns out that he's dealing with a finger injury. Burks did some good stuff in the loss to the Lions. 3 receptions for 58 yards on 3 targets and playing on 39% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 79.1. Dan Quinn, during his day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, also talked about the QB1, Jayden Daniels. He, for the loss to the Lions, was inactive due to the dislocated left elbow that he suffered in the Commanders' 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football on November 2nd. We, on November 3rd, learned that Daniels had not suffered a fracture. We, this past Friday, November 7th, learned that Daniels had not suffered serious ligament damage and did not need to undergo surgery. He still has not been placed on the reserve/injured list. Dan Quinn, during his post-practice press conference this past Friday, said to look for an update on Daniels after the team's Week 12 bye. But we, on Monday afternoon, had this back and forth between Commanders insider J.P. Finley of NBC4 and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Dan, I'm just curious, you kind of said with Jayden you're going to take it as it comes. How does yesterday's loss to Detroit impact your guys' decision-making process with Jayden?
Yeah, we didn't have anything that it impacted. We haven't been there, JP, with us yet. Focus has been on him getting better. He's doing all the right stuff. He only, this guy heals fast. So we haven't had any discussions regarding that, JP.
Okay, and then just any update on if Jayden's going to go to Spain?
He will not.
Yeah, I do think that Jayden Daniels should play again this season if he's healthy enough to play, unless he's not healthy enough to play until, say, Week 17 or Week 18. But he's in just his second season as an NFL quarterback. He needs reps. He needs work. He's not a finished product. Meantime, not that this means a ton, given the state of our team's season, but the QB2, Marcus Mariota, played really well in the loss to the Lions. I, on Monday's show, episode 1195, detailed why I felt he played well in the game, and the advanced stats back up him having played well in the game. Mariota for the game had an overall grade for Pro Football Focus of 79.6. That's good. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average. Mariota for the game, as of games through Sunday, had a total QBR per ESPN of 82.8. That's great. QBR is on a scale of 0 to 100. 50 is average. And Mariota for the game per RBSDM.com had an expected points added per play of 0.39 and a total EPA of 11.6. You know, it's not often that the quarterback for a team in a blowout loss fares well in EPA, but Mariota did. I give him credit. He played well. Also, with Mariota on Sunday was him during his postgame press conference on Sunday night providing quite the quote. Quote, "I don't think we are who we think we are." End quote. Here you go.
At the end of the day, in order to get things going in the right direction, you have to be transparent, you have to be honest. And I don't think we are who we think we are.
Yeah, that absolutely stood out. Quote, "I don't think we are who we think we are." End quote. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
No, I don't know if you caught this. I want to get this quote right. Marcus Mariota said after the game, "I don't think we are who we think we are." So with that being said, do you think in a sense it's time to recalibrate expectations even from the fans and everybody in your building of kind of where this team is going forward?
I think that's a fair question after a difficult game, and we've got to dig in, man. Like I said, we've got to put everything we can, Scott, into this game and where we're at. There's the bye after that, but I'm not looking too far down the line. Like, how much better can we get this week, man? That's it. It's cool to have everybody going together. That's a big deal for us to have everybody together, go get our processes right, get our line of our football like we want to do it. It's going to be an awesome environment, but as far as like big picture stuff, I'm pretty locked in on the present one now. I'll have a little more space to do that during the bye. There's not a player that I respect more than Marcus, so his insights are usually spot on. And you'd have to ask him, but we're not hitting the mark. It's fair to say that we're not doing the things we need to do to be who we want to be.
What Marcus Mariota said on Sunday night, quote, "I don't think we are who we think we are," end quote, that could mean a lot of different things. Could be a shot at the players, could be a shot at the coaches, could be a shot at everyone, could be a shot at no one. Like maybe he just said that as a way of saying that the team is having a disappointing season. But something that I have wondered is if there is more to why the Commanders are having such a disappointing season than meets the eye. A tradition like no other with this football team is near or at the end of a bad season, there being a lengthy expose, usually by the Washington Post or ESPN.com, on things that went wrong. And this is where you get anonymous quotes and anonymous sources and reveals of behind-the-scenes problems about which we had no idea. Is one or more of those exposés coming? Maybe not. Hopefully not. But you gotta wonder. We on Monday afternoon had this back and forth between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Dan. The culture, the brotherhood inside that locker room was such a big deal last year, and I'm not suggesting that it's fractured, but last year it seemed to really lift you guys up. Why is that impact not seemingly taking place this year?
It's a great question, Ben. The consistency and the things that we need to do as a team, that has to lift us up. And if we do those things, you get a win, then you get back onto the space that you want to get to. So being in this slump that we've been in, emotionally it's hard, but man, you got it right. Like, you have to lift one another up. You have to perform to get those results as well. And I just felt the up and down nature of our performances have not led to us performing better, and we're going to dig in hard on that, man.
Yeah, the Brotherhood. What has happened to the Brotherhood? Such a powerful force for the Commanders last season, but the Brotherhood is not coming through for the team this season, at least not yet. Well, if you are a Washington Wizards fan who cares about wins and losses, then Monday night was tough. If you are a Wizards fan like me who doesn't care about wins and losses and is all in on the tank, then Monday night wasn't too bad. But man, this was some game. A 137-135 overtime loss at the Detroit Pistons on Monday night. The Wizards lost their 9th consecutive game. They in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season now are 1-10 10. This was a choke job of a loss, or perhaps a clutch loss by our tanking Wizards, depending on your perspective. But they blew a 13-point fourth quarter lead. They blew a 5-point lead with 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Yes, somehow the Wizards lost a game in which they held a 5-point lead with 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Dennis Jenkins connected on a game-tying 22-foot contested right corner three off an inbounds pass to tie the game at 1:27 in the closing seconds of the fourth quarter. The Wizards then lost the overtime 10-8. Here was the call of that Dennis Jenkins three. Dave Johnson and Glenn Consor on the Washington Wizards radio network.
It can't go back to Cade Cunningham.
Who's inbounding the ball? Sarr is covering the inbound. Cunningham on the inbound. Got to get it in. A couple bodies fall into the right corner. And Jenkins scores! Dennis Jenkins scores! And we are tied at 1:27. Unbelievable! From the right corner, Dennis Jenkins scores!
They're going to review it, but I think it was good.
I think it was good. And I don't know how he saw the basket, but Dennis Jenkins' night continues.
Yeah, heck of a shot by Dennis Jenkins. There was so much to this game. The Wizards got out-rebounded by the Pistons 63-46, including having just 11 offensive rebounds to the Pistons' 28, and thus 15 second-chance points to the Pistons' 25. This was another game in which the Wizards committed a bunch of turnovers. The Wizards committed 20 turnovers to the Pistons' 16, had just 14 points off turnovers to the Pistons' 27. The Wizards allowed Cade Cunningham to have a triple-double, though on very inefficient shooting. He had 44 minutes, 35 seconds as a starter, had 46 points, 12 rebounds, including 5 offensive boards, 11 assists versus 2 turnovers, 5 steals, and 2 blocks, but he went just 14 for 45 from the field. Just 2 for 11 on threes, and just 12 for 34 on twos. In fact, Cunningham's 31 missed field goal attempts are the most by a player in a regular season NBA game since the 1976-1977 NBA-ABA merger. You talk about a high-volume shooter. That was Cade Cunningham in this game. 31 missed field goal attempts, but he had a triple-double. He did go 16 for 18 on free throws. The Pistons went 30 for 38 on free throws. The Wizards 20 for 26 on free throws. But the Wizards had a 40-point score of their own. C.J. McCollum, who hopefully will prove to be a nice trade chip for our Wizards this season, he in 42-50 as a starter, had 42 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists versus 4 turnovers. He went 5 for 10 on threes, 9 for 15 on twos, and 9 for 11 on free throws. As for key building blocks for the Wizards, Alex Sarr, he in 37-19 as a starter, went just 1 for 5 on threes, 6 for 11 on twos, did not attempt a free throw. He finished with 15 points, 15 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 2 assists versus 3 turnovers. Cam Whitmore, 29-19 off the bench, 20 points, 2 steals, and 2 rebounds. He went just 1 for 5 on threes, but also 5 for 6 on twos, and 7 for 8 on free throws. Still no Bilal Coulibaly for the Wizards. He missed the 3rd consecutive game due to a left calf contusion. Chris Middleton returned from a 1-game absence caused by right knee injury management. Next up for the Wizards at the Houston Rockets, Wednesday night at 8. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Wednesday show, episode 1197, will include a lot for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Wednesday's show, discuss the Washington Capitals, Maryland basketball, and Virginia basketball. The Caps are at the Carolina Hurricanes Tuesday night at 7. The Terrapins are home to Alcorn State Tuesday night at 7. And the Cavaliers are home to Hampton Tuesday night at 9. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
This is a recalibrate. Finding our north again. And that starts, with our identity of our club. So, no, you will not hear me say the word rebuild at all.